West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy with Chef Justice Putnam. Netrootsradio.com.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théières, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ma fleur sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire.
We begin tonight with a major development in the dueling January 6th investigations. The House Select Committee has agreed to a formal path to share evidence and witness transcripts with the Justice Department as it escalates its own investigation. First reported by Politico, Chairman Benny Thompson confirmed the agreement on a template for evidence and witness transcript sharing. It is a major step, as the extent of the Justice Department's investigation has become increasingly public and more urgent, with the Washington Post first reporting that the DOJ is scrutinizing the former president's actions in its criminal probe. Chairman Thompson also said he anticipates a report on the National Guard response to the attack would be released in August, as the committee continued its work today. Former Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney met with the panel for a virtual taped deposition. Meanwhile, former Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said he is in discussions with the committee about possible testimony. And according to multiple reports, the committee has interviewed former Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin. Zeroing in on members of the former president's cabinet suggests that the committee could be looking for more information regarding possible discussions about invoking the 25th Amendment against the former president in the aftermath of the attack on the Capitol. Pompeo and Mnuchin reportedly discussed that possibility at the time, as reported by Jonathan Karl of ABC News in his book, Betrayal. In the meantime, committee witness Cassidy Hutchinson is also reportedly cooperating with the Justice Department's investigation. We now know that the department obtained phone records from her former boss, Mark Meadows, in April. Back in Washington today, following his COVID diagnosis, Committee Chairman Benny Thompson indicated that the Justice Department had expressed interest in evidence surrounding the fake pro-Trump elector scheme and welcomed the scrutiny into the former president's actions in particular.
I think we've made a significant case that there are some problems there. If that is the direction the Department of Justice is taking, then we are nation of laws. And they are the prosecutorial body to look at it. But it's up to them to tell us what they want.
Joining me now is Carol Leonnig, national investigative reporter for The Washington Post and an MSNBC contributor, and Glenn Kirshner, former federal prosecutor and an MSNBC legal analyst. Thank you both for being here. Carol, I'm going to start with you. Pompeo and Mnuchin apparently coming in to talk primarily about whether or not the 25th Amendment was considered, something that Jonathan Karl has written in his book. In essence, what would be the significance potentially, or is there significance in your reporting on the Justice Department side? Because that's state of mind kind of stuff. If two of his cabinet members or more thought that he might need a 25th Amendment option, is that something that you could see also traversing the line into the Department of Justice investigation?
You know, it really is a great question, but I think what's important there is whether or not Donald Trump knew they were considering that, right? His state of mind is really about what he knew and what he wanted. A critical point that's been raised over and over again was, did he know the election was not rigged? Well, there must have been 24 people who told him it wasn't, and they had all of the information at their disposal, most notably Bill Barr. In the case of the 25th Amendment, I find it really interesting, but I believe that the president had to know that that little plot was afoot in order for it to matter.
And Glenn, can you talk about the significance of there now being an agreement? Because that had been a point of contention, whether or not the committee would hand over its work product, in essence, to the Justice Department. Now that we know that they are pursuing their own investigation, we're now learning that the Justice Department actually, back in April, got phone records from key officials and aides in the Trump administration. That does include Mark Meadows. That seems significant.
It is significant, and it proves that the Department of Justice has been digging in ways and at times that none of us knew. So I think with respect to the transcripts, I have a feeling they will all go over to the Department of Justice from the J6 committee, but it feels like this is the J6 committee sort of flexing its co-equal branch of government muscle, saying we've done a lot of work. We're presenting our work product to the American people, and when we've completed our task, we will be providing you with the transcripts that you can then use. Because, Joy, they can take these transcripts, they can present them to the grand jury, and I suspect the federal prosecutors will want to build on them. We'll probably want to recall those witnesses and maybe flesh out some things on the evidentiary front that the J6 committee didn't. So it's all going to go over, but it looks like it's going to go over at a time of the J6 committee's choosing.
Carol, to come back to you just for a moment, to stay on this whole issue, to go back to this issue of Trump's state of mind. You wrote in a book you were very, very much familiar with, the book I Alone Can Fix It, that there was a concern that Trump would actually try to use the military to attempt a military coup in order to stay in power. I want to play General Mark Milley, and this is in one of the committee interviews that the January 6th committee conducted. And this is regarding how Mark Meadows and Mike Pompeo perceived Donald Trump's state of mind.
Now, there was a couple of the calls where, Meadows and or Pompeo, but more Meadows, how's the president doing? Like Pompeo might say, how's the president doing? And Meadows would say, well, he's in a really dark place. Like here's one, for example, on the 7th of January. So this is day after, right? POTUS is very emotional and in a bad place, Meadows.
And we know that Cassidy Hutchinson has testified about conversations among cabinet members. We saw in that documentary there was Mike Pence was presented with this idea himself. How much in your reporting do we know about how serious Trump might have been about attempting to use the military? We know Mark Milley would have said absolutely not.
That's right. And, Joy, Mark Milley would have said absolutely not, but he also was on tenterhooks prepared for the possibility that Donald Trump would try such a move, a banana republic junta kind of move. That was a worry of his. And as we write in our book, by Phil Rucker and I wrote in that book about the catastrophic year 2020, Milley was prepared for, this Reichstag moment. He believed that Donald Trump was whipping up a furor, whipping up panic and tension among his supporters, calling them to Washington will be wild on January 6th, and was trying to create this anger about a stolen election. Your votes have been stolen, completely false, but all toward the end of supporting Donald Trump's ability to create chaos, create violence, ultimately, and consequently, all in the furtherance of a scheme to overturn the rightful votes of Americans. Milley and others, forgive me, but one thing that's chilling to me is Milley and several of his Joint Chiefs met to plan what would they do if Donald Trump gave them orders to use the military for nefarious purposes, either to create panic and chaos or to try to intervene in the certification of the election. And they all agreed that one by one they would essentially throw their bodies over in front of this scheme. They would resign, and then others agreed that they would not agree to take their place. So in essence, you wouldn't have a military anymore. The same thing happened at the Department of Justice. Rich Donahue and Jeffrey Rosen warned the president, if you do this, if you try to make us claim the election is rigged, you're going to have a mass resignation at the Department of Justice.
And can I ask you, Carol, was there concern, because there were members of the Oath Keepers who are military. There were people who were part of that mob, chanting "Hang Mike Pence" and hunting Nancy Pelosi, et cetera, who had military backgrounds. Was there any concern, per your reporting, among Milley and other members of the cabinet that not all of the military would obey in order for Mark Milley to stand down?
Well, I think that is too speculative for me as a reporter to go into. I'll tell you that paramilitary quality of many of these individuals was a worry, and there were investigations in the aftermath of January 6th about some of the commentary that military members, Secret Service agents, and even some National Guard members made about January 6th, and essentially cheering on some of those insurrectionists. That was really worrisome about an enemy within. There have been a lot of conversations, really painful conversations at the Department of Homeland Security and DOD about, let's talk about people inside our government who believe that the election was rigged and that Donald Trump should still be president, and root for that.
Now that is the makings of a military coup. And I say that because, to come to you for a moment, Glenn, and then I will have a final question for Carol on this, because I know she's done a lot of reporting on it. The Secret Service is one entity that we're now starting to worry had elements within it that were in favor of this MAGA coup. The Secret Service director has now delayed his retirement. His name is James Murray. He's delaying his retirement. He was supposed to retire actually this weekend, but he's going to stay for the betterment of the agency and to see the agency through these investigations. We have the key Democrats wanting the Department of Homeland Security Inspector General to be removed. His name is Joseph Kafari, removed from the Secret Service probe. They say the Trump appointee knew earlier than has been reported that the agency deleted text messages from around the January 6th attack on the Capitol. So what we have now are concerns. And if you're at the Justice Department right now, who are you subpoenaing around that, if anyone?
So I actually think that the FBI has enough evidence, an adequate predication to open a criminal probe into the deletion of these Secret Service texts. It's so disheartening to me, Joy, because when I was working cases with the Secret Service, when we had cell phones and we needed to have forensic searches conducted, particularly if we thought that the owner of the cell phone had deleted information or evidence, we went to the United States Secret Service Forensic Sciences Division, because it's the premier agency to recover deleted data from electronic devices. So it really smells bad that they're saying that they inadvertently deleted all of this information after they were asked to preserve it. But you know what? If they've done nothing wrong, they will be exonerated, and they should welcome a criminal probe into their conduct.
It is Friday, the 29th of July of 2022, and you are in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. I am your chef de cuisine, Justice Putnam. Gunner, the English Bulldog, is our snoozing sous chef, and our daily special is Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. Yes, we are. Hey, it looks like it's going to be another scorcher day. Record temps yesterday. Looks like we'll have record temps today, but at least it's somewhat of a dry heat. I've been in humid environments when it's been about this hot, like in Mexico City, my God. And it can be quite oppressive. New Orleans, when it gets hot, stinks too. Well, it's because of the bayou. But hey, some people think it smells nice. It smells like the swamp. Isn't that great? I guess so. But so we are preparing to survive another day of this, well, I guess you could call it a killer heat, since it's killing people up here. And that stated, I take my dear mom in for some x-rays for her possible hip replacement surgery. She'd been on the list before the pandemic, and here it is a couple years later, and the hip isn't getting any better. It's getting worse. Her quality of life has diminished dramatically because of it. And it's to the point where, it's one thing to get around the house, but like to go to the store or to anywhere, which we shouldn't be doing because, I'm just being rhetorical, one should limit their involvement around other people since we have these viruses. I mean, they call it monkeypox, whatever it is. I don't want it. And we're still dealing with COVID, and people are dying of COVID again. Filling up the hospitals. No one wants to wear a mask. But anyway, we take her in for those x-rays in Medford today. And then we'll see how it goes. She's in a lot of pain. The pain meds don't really seem to help because, hey, they make you a little unstable to begin with, and you get a little off balance. Bounce bone off bone, what's going to happen? You're going to go to the ground and probably bounce your head off the floors, and we don't want that. She's fallen enough, and we don't want her falling anymore. So there you go. My sister is going to take her out to the coast at the end of the month, and that'll be nice. They haven't been able to get out for a bit. So they'll go out and do that for 3 days, I think is what my sister said that they're planning on doing. So that should be a grand tour for them. And on a less local front, what the hell is Alito doing over in Italy, gloating about taking away rights from women as they bleed out on operating tables as we speak? Or maybe not even on operating tables, in the waiting room. Oh, well, we have to wait to see if you die before we can save you. But I'll be dead. Yeah, but that's the law. Okay. And he's laughing about it. And he's out there dissing other leaders around the world who criticized the Supreme Court decision on ripping rights away from, a whole segment of the population. Yeah, he's a little shit, isn't he? Boy. Well, what do you expect from Opus Dei? And these guys got into a damn prayer circle and took bumper sticker slogans and wrote it into law, and now we have to put up with it? Hey, Alito, F you. Okay. Now, if we were on the other side, we would, I don't know, they don't really need much of an excuse to use their weapons now, do they? No. In fact, they want any excuse, and they're just waiting. And sometimes they don't even wait. So, I mean, what's all that road rage BS about out there? Did you see that video of that woman firing into a car with a 2-year-old? Because I guess they were pissed off about, I don't know. At some point in my life, I have to admit, is like, it's not worth getting mad at all these people because they're idiots. If you want to be in front of me, please, you go right ahead. I'll just lurk back here and make sure I have plenty of distance between you and me, because when something happens, I want enough distance to be able to get out of the way. Okay. You can learn about life by growing up and learning how to drive on the Southern California freeway system. Can people do that now? Can you actually drive on the freeways, or is it just like inching? I think basically people just inch along now. They don't really get to drive on the freeways. All right. I saw that. We all saw that in Soylent Green. There was all the gridlock on the overpasses that people just camped out. And next thing you know, they were living there. We're never going to get out of this traffic jam. No, we're not. And then they became food for the masses. Okay. Is that our destiny? Could be. Food for the worms, food for the masses. It's all the same when you're making money off of it, huh? And I guess that's what they're doing. And I use there with a capital T. They. The big capital T, they. They really do mess things up now, don't they? And then it's left to us to clean up the mess. And then when we have suggestions on how to do it better, oh, you peon, we can't listen to you. All we want to do is, make money. And you are a widget. Okay. I get it. Federalist Society has an article out that the Democrats are dangerously close to passing a law where the popular vote would elect the president, and they're criticizing it as if it's something bad. They're going to destroy our Constitution. No, the Constitution's made to be amended. That's why you have all the amendments. All right. And in the history of the Electoral College, we all know, those of us who have studied it, and I'm not just talking about on YouTube. I'm talking about an actual study of it in an academic setting. The Electoral College was a compromise. We have all these compromises. The Missouri Compromise, this compromise, everything's a compromise. Even Chamberlain, hey, we got a compromise here. Everybody go to bed. Everything's cool. Next thing you know, we're a world at war. So compromises are, by their very definition, made to be amended now, aren't they? Because people make compromises in the heat of the battle. And maybe that's what Alito and these so-called originalists are arguing. That in the heat of the battle, we compromise on letting black people be free. We can't have that. I'm telling you, if they're taking away all these rights against women, and then they're going to say, oh, Obergefell and everything, oh, no, you can't marry the people that you love, you pervert. While they're being the most perverted, I don't even want to know what they do behind closed doors. Man, Prince William's doing a lot of pegging. I wonder what Alito's doing. You know, Alito looks like a guy who's been pegged. Jeez. That's why I don't want people like that being the decider on what's normal. I don't know. What is normal? Yeah. Well, I don't consider Alito to be a very virtuous sort. Let's put it that way. He does. Because all those Opus Dei freaks think that they are holier than thou. And that we are all just a bunch of, I don't know, children acting up. Oh, little children, they want to be able to vote. Silly kids. Okay, I guess we're going to be put on detention, huh? We're grounded? We may be. Okay, well, that stated earlier about getting my mom to her medical appointment. I should probably hurry up because as soon as we get done here, I got to get out the door and we may have to abbreviate certain things or elongate breaks or something like that. And I apologize for that. In some cases I am in during the break period, I'm making sure that mom is taken care of, and sometimes she needs a little bit more care. It's like, can't you wait to have all of these demands when I'm not doing the show? Of course not. She lives on her own time. How dare she? Well, anyway, she's my mom, and we promised to take care of her. Not her. When we were kids, we promised that we really didn't want to shuttle our parents off to a convalescent hospital and have them wither away there. Yeah, better to have them wither away at home. Nah, it's not withering. Much rather have them at home. And then this is something that we look forward to our whole lives. And here we are. Scary, too. Anyway, let us attend to the curated part of the show by giving you a rundown on the curated part of the show. Yeah, General Milley at the top worried that Trump would try a, quote, banana republic junta move on January 6th. Yeah, we all did. On the rest of the menu, a new United States Postal Service election division will oversee mail-in ballots. Only if DeJoy's not there will this work. They're gonna have one division and bring all the mail-in ballots there so they can. Oh, I don't know. We lost them. They disappeared. Next thing you know, DeJoy's working at Snapchat. The deal Schumer and Manchin brokered on Capitol Hill could ease seniors' health costs. And since we're seniors now, that is good news. And 41 Republican senators gloated in the well of the Senate after they broke their promise to protect veterans' health. Petty, petty, petty people, aren't they? After the break, we move to the chef's table, where Moscow's threat to shut down a prominent Jewish organization could worsen antisemitism in Russia. And Italy's president encouraged Italians to reinvigorate their country's democracy as a bulwark against fascism. Wow, you know what? We should do that here. All that and more on West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit. netrootsradio.com. To the right of the page is the chat room link, and the chat room is monitored by Kelly Lincoln, who will be attending Netroots Nation in Pittsburgh this in just a couple of weeks. So stay tuned for some great content out of Netroots Nation in Pittsburgh. First in-person meetup in a couple of years, and yes, we all will be taking the precautions that one takes since the pandemic is ongoing, with even more weird viruses floating around. Goody. Anyway, thank you, Kelly, for everything that you do. If you would look across from that chat room link to the left, you'll notice our Patreon link. And I'm just going to say, if you could help us, it would be great. If you could send us what you might spend on an espresso-type coffee drink once a month, it will help us pay our bills, and then we can continue doing what we're doing here. And thank you to all of you who have been so generous in doing so and allowing us to fulfill our civic duty as the founders originally intended so many, many years ago. If you would like to follow Netroots Radio on Twitter, you can do that by going to @NetrootsRadio. Tom takes care of that and a hell of a lot more, too. Thanks, Tom. Follow me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. I post the show notes and links diary on Daily Kos about 10 minutes before showtime. And in fact, it's not about, it is 10 minutes before showtime because it's automatic. Put it in queue and the machine does it for you. And then the human element comes in, which is where error occurs. And that is when I get it posted up on social media platforms like Twitter. But you can always find the generic page for all those show notes and links, including the current one, by following me on Twitter @JusticePutnam. There's a link right there to get to the My Daily Kos page, and there you go. You can also follow the show on Twitter @CookbookWest and pick up podcasts. Please pick up podcasts by way of Spreaker, Stitcher, TuneIn, iHeart, YouTube, iTunes, really wherever podcasts can be found. And, of course, now the deep archive of the last 11 years of the Netroots Radio Library can be found at the Internet Archive at archive.org. Oh, I was noticing, just looking at the metrics on Spreaker on who's been picking up podcasts, and we are truly around the world. Somehow I'm breaking through into Russia. They're downloading the show in Russia, Slovenia, Portugal. You would expect, I guess you would. France is in the mix. Indonesia, Australia, Canada, of course, Mexico. I've got a lot of Latin America. Argentina is a big downloader. So thank you to our international listenership, because West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy, well, we speak easy about the world. I don't know, I just came up with that. Have a French 77. It'll loosen your tongue. It will. All right, this first offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy is out of the Associated Press by anonymous staff. The United States Postal Service is creating a division to handle election mail issues as part of an effort to ensure swift and secure delivery of ballots for the 2022 midterm election, officials said on Wednesday late. The idea behind the creation of the election and government mail services is to have a permanent division dedicated to dealing with election matters instead of handling issues one at a time as in the past. Adrian Marshall, executive director of the division, said that the services will oversee election mail strike teams in every local and district community to address any problems that might arise. We are fully committed to the secure and timely delivery of the nation's election mail, she said. The Postal Service was dogged by backlogs and questions ahead of the 2020 presidential election, in which more than 135 million ballots were delivered to and from voters. Despite the pandemic, the Postal Service said it delivered 97.9% of ballots from voters to election officials within 3 days, and 99.89% of ballots were delivered within 7. The Postal Service is sending guidance letters to election officials in each state and territory this week. Postal workers are already hard at work delivering ballots this year. So far, nearly 40 million ballots have been mailed to and from voters during the primary elections, officials said. Sedensky and Carla K. Johnson of the Associated Press bring us this next offering here on the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. A deal on Capitol Hill that could cut prescription costs for millions of Medicare beneficiaries was cautiously cheered by older Americans and their advocates, even as many worried it might never come to fruition. The healthcare and climate agreement struck by Chuck Schumer and Manchin includes landmark provisions that could help senior citizens, including a cap on out-of-pocket Medicare drug costs and a requirement that the government negotiate prices on some high-cost drugs. Some of the issues addressed in the deal have been talked about for decades and proved elusive, but Manchin's backing brought new optimism to many who have lobbied and prayed for relief and hoping that this time the football doesn't get pulled away. This time! We worry constantly. Will we be able to afford this? Said Becky Miller, a 67-year-old retired teacher from Bradenton, Florida, who spends thousands of dollars each year for drugs to treat epilepsy, heart problems, and an inflammatory disease that affects her spine. She is afraid that powerful pharmaceutical lobby might still thwart the plan, but said if this goes through, it will help a lot of people. Several prongs of the proposal have the potential to bring relief to millions of people. It would cap out-of-pocket drug costs at $2,000 a year for Medicare beneficiaries. No such limit exists today. And some older people on costly drugs can run up bills of tens of thousands of dollars. It would give Medicare, for the first time, the ability to directly negotiate with pharmaceutical companies over the price of drugs, though the number of medications subject to the provision would be limited. It would create a new inflation rebate requiring drug companies to give refunds to Medicare beneficiaries for increases in prescription drug prices that exceed the rate of inflation. It would provide coverage of vaccines for senior citizens. Some Medicare beneficiaries have had to pay out of pocket for recommended immunizations, such as the one against shingles. Earlier proposals were more generous, and along the way, provisions to pay for senior citizens' glasses, hearing aids, and dental care were trimmed. They always are. But news of a possible deal still drew applause. If passed, an estimated 4.1 million Medicare beneficiaries would start getting free vaccines as soon as next year. Other proposals would take longer to kick in. The cap on out-of-pocket spending would start in 2025, and in 2026, the government would be able to start negotiating prices, beginning with 10 drugs and increasing to 20 by 2029. Josh Israel of the American Independent brings us this final offering here in the Bistro Cafe of West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. 41 Senate Republicans blocked a bipartisan compromise bill that would expand health care for veterans who are exposed to toxic chemicals while serving. Every one of those no votes came from a Republican senator who had previously pledged to support military veterans and their health care. 24 of the senators who voted no had voted for a nearly identical bill just weeks ago. Their flip-flops came shortly after Senate Democrats announced a major agreement on a budget reconciliation package that would invest in climate change action, health care, and fighting inflation, efforts the GOP has fiercely opposed. 8 Republicans joined all 48 of the Democrats present in supporting the bill, but that fell short of the 60-vote supermajority required to end the GOP filibuster. Chuck Schumer changed his vote to no at the last minute for procedural reasons, enabling him to force another vote in the future. The vote was 55-42. The Sergeant First Class Health Robinson, honoring our promise to address Comprehensive Toxic Act of 2022, would provide expanded health coverage for veterans who were exposed to burn pits and Agent Orange, create an interagency toxic exposure research working group to plan and increase federally backed research on toxic exposure, and make 3.5 million combat veterans who served since September of 2001 eligible for health care through the Department of Veterans Affairs. And the Republicans said, "You're just nothing but cannon fodder anyway." Well, that brings us to our break, and when we get back from that break, we will go through weather from around the world, and we will finish up with the stories that we have curated for you today. You're listening to West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. We will be right back.
You are listening to netrootsradio.com.
Please hang up and try again.
From a point at sea to the circles of your mind, a new force is at work for planetary transformation. New radio for a new Earth.
This is Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. This week, do crawdads sing? Whenever I check a certain review aggregator and see that 95% of an audience likes a movie, yet only 30% of reviewers, my curiosity is aroused. The movie adaptation of Delia Owens' 2018 novel Where the Crawdad Sings is such a movie, which poses questions about what ordinary moviegoers want compared with reviewers. The novel provides the bones of a decent movie. A young woman, Kaya, ends up mostly bringing herself up in the swamps of North Carolina after her family flees her abusive alcoholic father before the father abandons Kaya. The story is told in retrospect during a murder trial in which Kaya is the defendant after one of the two men with whom she's become involved turns up dead at the base of a fire tower. The problems start but don't end with the production design. It's way too clean and ridiculously obviously not filmed in North Carolina. Picture To Kill a Mockingbird, where everyone's dressed out of the J. Crew catalog, never perspires, or has a southern accent. And in the area of race relations, anyone who grew up in or near North Carolina during this era, the 60s, would be wondering if this one was filmed on Earth, given the interactions portrayed between the African-American and white characters. Daisy Edgar-Jones gives a good performance as young adult Kaya, and David Strathairn kills it as her attorney, despite both working from an unremarkable script. The cinematography gives Where the Crawdads Sing a nice look. I suspect the mostly female readers of the novel taking this one in are probably happy with it, especially with the hunky male leads. As to singing crawdads, that's addressed in dialogue, but it represents a level of subtle metaphor not found anywhere else in this one. This has been Take Two Movie Review. I'm Mike Friend. Catch up with us at take2moviereview.com and feed us back on our channel on YouTube.
This program is presented by the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Hey kids and parents, it's back to school time. As you shop for school supplies and get ready for class, make sure you have emergency plans in place. Did you know that emergency preparedness plays a major role in school life? Throughout the year, schools actively prepare for natural disasters, outbreaks, and other emergency situations. Students and parents need to be aware and learn what to do during an emergency. Every family should build an emergency kit, make a family disaster plan, and be informed about events that could affect their community. Parents, take a few extra steps to help children be prepared. Make sure they know the full name, address, and phone numbers of parents or guardians. In our high-tech world of cell phones, memorizing emergency phone numbers is very important. Include a copy of this information in their backpack. Other items to keep in their backpack include water and non-perishable snacks, a pocket-sized first aid kit, a whistle to alert others for help, and a list of allergies, medical conditions, and medications. Make sure their school and teacher have a copy, too. Be familiar with different routes and ways to travel home, like walking, taking the bus, or riding home with another student who lives nearby. Establish a secret code word with your child and whoever takes them home from school to protect against an unauthorized person picking them up. This list is a great starting point to prepare your student for the upcoming school year. Customize these steps to fit your child's capabilities and needs. Ask school administrators and teachers about emergency preparedness plans so you know what steps they are taking to keep your child safe. Many schools have guidelines on how to shelter in place during natural disasters, how to secure classrooms during an emergency lockdown, and how to teach preparedness curriculum to students. Remember, emergency preparedness is important for everyone. Children who are prepared are more confident during stressful emergency situations. By following preparedness guidelines, parents, children, and school staff can improve their safety and peace of mind. For more information on school emergency preparedness, visit cdc.gov/children/schools. To learn more about disasters and emergency preparedness, follow @CDC Emergency on Twitter or visit emergency.cdc.gov. So, let's get prepared. Have a great school year.
For the most accurate health information, visit www.cdc.gov or call 1-800-CDC-INFO.
Hi, I'm Tom Hartman, and since you're listening to netrootsradio.com, show your progressive side and go to the donate button on the bottom of the homepage. It's progressives like you who power Netroots Radio and keep the progressive message beaming everywhere 24 hours a day. Just go to our donate button at the bottom of netrootsradio.com. Thank you for keeping progressive radio at full power.
Last July, several GOP senators combined their 5-watt intellects to charge that inflation was rising because of, quote, insane tax and spending spree of President Biden and the Democrats. Never mind that the insane spending is for such sensible, productive, and enormously popular national needs as child care and jobless benefits. Mitch McConnell's rabidly partisan flock saw the chance to politicize the public's legitimate worries about rising prices. You poor consumers are made to pay more for basics, they squawked, because of Socialist Joe's investment in grassroots people. Follow the ricocheting pinball of the GOP's logic. 1, they say that helping hard-hit families induces them to refuse to go to work. 2, this creates blockages in the global supply chain. 3, this causes shortages of everything. 4, this forces corporate bosses to raise all prices, which 5, slams the middle class and poor, so 6, lazy workers cause inflation. Whoa, Rube Goldberg couldn't have dreamed up a more fantastical diagram to deflect attention from what's really happening, namely that instead of an inflation problem, we have a corporate greed problem. Of course, the greedmeisters insist that their pursuit of excess corporate profits has not driven any price surges. In our economy of free market competition, they snap, prices are established by the law of supply and demand. It's the magic of the marketplace, they explain. But magicians don't do magic, they perform illusions. And the illusion of free market competition implodes when it hits the reality that our economy doesn't remotely resemble a competitive marketplace. This is Jim Hightower saying, for some 40 years, corporate-directed government policies have been transforming America into a monopoly nation, letting the few gouge the many. That's where inflation comes from. Howdy-ho, folks. Thanks for tuning in and sharing my weekly commentaries. Also, please join me for a live web show I host every other Tuesday, the Hightower Lowdown Happy Hour at the Chat and Chew Cafe. You can join the action live online as I chat with grassroots leaders and progressive sparklies from around the country. Go to hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew to find out about upcoming guests and watch past episodes. That's hightowerlowdown.org/chat-and-chew.
Welcome to 60 Second Civics, the daily podcast of the Center for Civic Education. I'm Mark Gage. The framers of the Constitution wanted to prevent a tyrannical executive in the presidency and a tyranny of a majority in Congress, but they were also careful to limit the power of the courts. The Supreme Court has the primary responsibility for interpreting the meaning of the Constitution and laws made by Congress, which are signed by the president. But this power is shared by the other branches of government. For example, Congress and the president share the power to interpret the Constitution and to make laws to carry out its intent. The president has the power to interpret the meaning of laws made by Congress and to direct the executive agencies to carry out and enforce them. That's all for today's podcast, 60 Second Civics, where civic education only takes a minute.
Can a black person be fired from their job because of their hair? I'm Bill Newman, and this is the Civil Liberties Minute. In 18 states, the answer is an emphatic no, because 18 states have passed a Crown Act, an acronym for Creating a Respectful and Open World for Natural Hair. These Crown Acts prohibit discrimination in employment and schools on the basis of hair or hairstyles associated with racial, ethnic, and cultural identities. The states that have enacted a Crown Act, all since 2019, are California, New York, New Jersey, Maryland, Virginia, Colorado, Washington, Connecticut, Delaware, New Mexico, Nevada, Nebraska, Illinois, Oregon, Maine, Tennessee, Louisiana, and, as of late July 2022, Massachusetts. A federal Crown Act would bar this discrimination nationwide by making it a form of national origin or race discrimination. That proposed law passed the House of Representatives this year, 235 to 180. But the Senate has not yet acted on this proposed legislation. Policies and practices that prohibit natural hair have been used to justify removing black children from classrooms and adults from their employment. So, we need 32 more states and the United States Senate to pass a Crown Act so that this form of discrimination is outlawed completely nationwide. The Civil Liberties Minute is made possible by the ACLU because freedom can't protect itself.
I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1970. That was the day the United Farm Workers, led by Cesar Chavez, signed their first union contract in California. It was a milestone victory for agricultural workers. Farm workers, often Mexican immigrants, had very strenuous working conditions. They worked long hours in the fields for extreme poverty wages. In the event that housing was provided, it was often unsanitary and of very poor quality. Filipino organizers sought to improve working conditions for agricultural workers. After the U.S. colonized the Philippines, many Filipinos were recruited to work on California farms. They began organizing as early as the 1930s, forming the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee. The Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee reached prominence by the 1950s. At the same time, Mexican-American Cesar Chavez, along with Dolores Huerta, founded the National Farm Workers Association to organize the Mexican workers who were increasingly dominating the labor force in the fields. The Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee went on strike against the grape growers near Delano, California. Their goal was to get a raise of 20 cents per hour. When the owners refused to negotiate, the Agricultural Workers Organizing Committee reached out to Chavez. The two groups merged to create the United Farm Workers. The United Farm Workers Union was able to get the support of many in the public through a boycott of California grapes. While the boycott lasted some 5 years, grape growers received considerably negative press and suffered financially. As a result, on July 29, 1970, growers agreed to a contract with the United Farm Workers, the first such agreement in farm labor history. So the next time you're enjoying those tasty grapes, think about the workers and their brave efforts to unionize farm workers. Like what you hear? Check out more at laborhistoryin2.com.
Thank you for accompanying us here to the chef's table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays, because we are all Nighthawks in the Diner of Life. We always begin, whether from around the world, along the banks of the Rogue River in the Rogue River Valley of Southern Oregon on the west coast of the continental United States of America, where it is currently 73 degrees Fahrenheit already, expecting a high of 112 or more, and we should have plenty of sunshine while that happens, and that will be near record temperatures. And I say it will be a record temp, at least here at the mothership. Winds will be out of the northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour, clear to partly cloudy overnight with lows in the mid-70s, not nearly cool enough to cool off. And winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10 miles per hour. Mostly sunny skies tomorrow, Saturday, with highs around 110 or warmer. And that will be near high record temps as well, or near record high temps. And winds will be out of the west-northwest at 5 to 10. Confirmed cases of coronavirus in Jackson County in the southern part of Oregon will be updated later today, but we do have numbers that stand at 485,062 confirmed cases, with 561 confirmed deceased. Grass pollen is rated as moderate right outside the window here in Rogue River proper. The air quality index is in the good range, just about ready to tip over into moderate at 49 parts per million, and that daytime UV index remains very high at level 9. Do take care. Barometric pressure is falling at 29.89 inches. Visibility is up to 10 miles, and relative humidity is at 78%. Weather from around the world is brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. London is 78 degrees and fair. Paris is 85 and sunny. Rome is 91 and fair with a heat advisory that could impact critical electrical infrastructure. Kyiv is 81 and partly cloudy. Kabul is 77 and clear. Hong Kong is 88 and fair. Tokyo is 83 and fair. Sydney, Australia is 49 degrees and fair. San Francisco, California is 57 and cloudy. And New York, New York is 83 degrees Fahrenheit and partly cloudy. And that is weather from around the world, brought to you by a crowd of crowdsourced weather stations that a crowd crowdsources from around the world. Robin Dixon and Natalia Abakamova of the Washington Post brings us this first amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy Blue Moon Spirits Fridays. Russia's threat to shut down a prominent Jewish organization has stoked fears among Jews planning to leave the country because of its war against Ukraine, while deepening a rift between Russia and Israel. A Moscow court held a preliminary hearing yesterday, Thursday, about the Justice Ministry's application to abolish the Russian branch of the Jewish Agency for Israel and schedule the next hearing for August 19th. The Kremlin denies any political motive, even as Moscow attacks statements by Israeli officials opposing its invasion of Ukraine. The agency, which was founded more than 90 years ago, that's 90, and is affiliated with Israel's government, helps Jewish families immigrate to Israel, including organizing travel and paying airfare. More than 16,000 Russians have left the country for Israel since the start of the war, according to the Jerusalem Post, in a sign of disquiet over Putin's brutal campaign to denazify Ukraine and topple its Jewish president. Another 34,000 have traveled to Israel as tourists.
Je te donne ce mon amour pour la vie entière, la promesse de me trouver à tes genoux. Aussitôt que tu m'appelles, rester toujours fidèle, c'est tout, c'est tout. Je te donne tous mes printemps, mes étés de mer, mes automnes quand les feuilles tombent partout. Si ce n'est pas une bonne affaire, je te donne tous mes hivers.
Francis D'Amelio of the Associated Press brings us this final amuse-bouche here at the Chef's Table at West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Italy's president, marking the 100th anniversary of one of the attacks that helped bring dictator Benito Mussolini to power, encouraged Italians to reinvigorate their country's democracy as a bulwark against fascism. President Sergio Mattarella was commemorating the trashing and torching by fascist thugs of a farm cooperative building in the northeastern city of Ravenna. And that happened 100 years ago. The violent attack was one in a series launched by fascist supporters of the dictator, whose iron rule would last into World War II. Italy's fascist legacy faces increasingly closer scrutiny these days as the country holds an early parliamentary election. Opinion polls indicate the far-right Brothers of Italy, which has neo-fascist roots, would be the top vote-getter, with the party's leader, Giorgia Meloni, eager to become premier. She has never disavowed her party's fascist roots, but has distanced it from Mussolini's racial laws targeting Jews for now. And that brings us to the end of our broadcast period for the day and the week. But you do know Netroots Radio broadcasts on, and we will meet up here on Monday for River City Hash Mondays. So do stay tuned to Netroots Radio all day and all night for all the breaking news as it breaks. And we will meet up here on Monday, right here, in West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Bon appetit.
Je voudrais du soleil vert, des dentelles et des théâtres, des photos de bord de mer, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je voudrais de la lumière, comme en Nouvelle-Angleterre. Je veux changer d'atmosphère, dans mon jardin d'hiver. Robe à fleurs sous la pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Je voudrais du Fred Astaire, revoir un latte Goël. Je voudrais toujours te plaire dans mon jardin d'hiver. Je veux déjeuner par terre, comme au long de golfe clair. T'embrasser les yeux ouverts dans mon jardin d'hiver. Pluie de novembre, tes mains qui courent, je n'en peux plus de t'attendre. Les années passent, il est loin, là je tombe. Nul ne peut nous entendre. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Ba-da-da-dum-di-da-dum. 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 Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver. Dans mon jardin d'hiver.